My name is Roger Lane, and over the last year plus, I was one of Cody's first-line supervisors on B-Watch. The last 2 months as his front-line, first-line supervisor. This job comes with many ups and downs, but supervising Cody was definitely one of those ups. I witnessed his energy every morning that helped start everyone's day. Seeing his massive lunch cooler sitting in his seat when I got to work, knowing Cody was in the weight room doing his thing. Knowing that any important details that we as supervisors needed to discuss during our morning shift briefings needed to be done immediately because someone would say something that would set off the rant. I always knew when the workday was going to be fun as I turned the corner into the shift briefing room and heard that distinct voice already fired up and telling stories. I remember recently another officer initiated a vehicle pursuit that ended up heading eastbound on I-70. Cody was the closest unit and ended up becoming secondary and calling the chase. When I joined as the supervisor, I got to sit back and watch a grown man and a younger officer handle the chase like it was their 1,000th pursuit. Cody loved doing what he called cop work. As the suspect began driving around the old Odessa outlet mall and eventually fled on foot where Cody and Officer Cochran apprehended him, I reviewed the dash cam to do my supervisor review, and I couldn't help but notice Cody let out a scream, either in joy or pain, as he chased the suspect down to apprehend him. When I asked Cody about the squeal, he told me the small child in me came out, and when I tackled him, I may have let out a celebratory whoop. He called it his battle cry. Nope, that was just Cody. Fast forward to a couple weeks ago, he was on perimeter of another car chase with suspect on foot in the woods. Somehow Cody managed to fall over a fence and injure his tricep. The next day, which was a day off for us, he texted me and told me he was switching to whiskey tonight because 12-ounce curls were hurting his arm. Our next work day consisted of his rant about teaching everyone how to properly do field searches. I would later ask him if he wanted me to teach him how to climb over a fence. He politely declined, telling me his method was mostly effective. We're all here today to celebrate Cody as a hero. The way he responded last week was nothing short of heroic. But I can't help but think of him as a hero because of how he lived. I preach at work family first, meaning take care of your family because you can't take care of yourself or your family. You can't take care of others without taking care of yourself first. When he recently returned from his boys' trip, he was telling me I told him he should make that a regular thing. The thoughts of boys' weekend trips excited him. Cody was full of life, energetic, always helpful, and very, very honest. While he may be gone, he will never be forgotten. We are all better humans because he was part of our lives. Cody, my life is better because you were in it. We love you, brother.
It's going to be tough. Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming. I first met Cody when he was working in patrol, and I always thought he was a squared away officer just by watching him how he did his calls. Cody then got transferred, went to the part-time SWAT team. I was able to meet with him, talk to him, get to know him a little bit better. But it wasn't until we both got to AIU together. And we all know when you go to AIU, you see a lot of bad things. We got to bond a lot better. But during that time, D.C. Peterson probably stole my one good liner. It was very noticeable that when Cody would get frustrated, we'd have a busy day, it could be a Friday, sunny, 65 degrees, 4 o'clock, somehow everybody on I-70 eastbound will crash. Don't know how, but it just does. And you'd have one of those days, Cody'd come in after having 3 or 4 crash reports. You know, they're simple, but they're just, simple crash reports, fender benders. He'd come in, he'd be frustrated. He'd say, yeah. I'd ask him how he's doing. He goes, yeah, just got a McChicken. He goes, don't worry, when this one's done, I'll have 2 more waiting for me, 2 more McChickens. So I said, okay. So from then on, crashes were McChickens. Cody was always trying to do better. He always tried to make sure his family, everybody did better. He was very well versed with his money. He didn't ever wanted to be want for it. So during that time, and I think maybe the last couple of years of police work with, this George Floyd, all this other stuff going on, he got kind of a little frustrated and thought maybe he wanted to go do something else. So Cody decided to go to Evergy. He wanted to go to Evergy, and he saw the big bill and how much money he can make, stuff like that. Wanted to be a lineman. So he decided to do that. Went there. He said if he didn't try it, he didn't know if he could live with himself because he always wanted to try it. So he did. And he said, if I don't like it, I can always come back to the police department and make more McChickens. I said, fair. When he did leave, several of us, we missed him. When you lose a hard, good, squared away officer that is honest, his integrity, you don't get those all the time. It's very nice to have somebody you can rely on. So a lot of us got sad. I still talk to him when he went to Evergy. I talked to him on the phone. All the time he'd talk, and at first you could tell he was happy because he's doing something different. He's learning. He always liked to learn new things. Like DC said, he liked to tinker in his garage, and he'd sit there and drink his Busch Light. That was his choice of beer. And he always liked learning. He always craved knowledge. Cody had been gone for approximately a year before he decided to come back to the police department. And throughout that year, there's probably 100 of us that came in here or that would probably talk to him and say, hey, when are you coming back? Hey, come on back. Sure enough, he came back. I think one of the main reasons why he came back, honestly, I think it was because he missed the camaraderie of his friends and the police culture. This is where he was, this is where he should have been, that's where he came back to. He was a great officer, great friend. Cody didn't like long-winded speeches, unless it was one of his daily briefing rants. Everybody knows. He had them in AIU. McChickens. He loved his family. He was born to do police work. Once again, he also liked his Busch Light beer. You couldn't ask for a better man or officer when you needed backup or someone just to talk to. He was an excellent source for policing and even better mentor for new recruits. He was always honest with you, whether you liked it or not. Cody was easy to talk, as long as you didn't piss him off. He was the best of friends and the worst of enemies. I think I talked to Cody more on the phone than my wife. She would even make comments whenever he called, like, who is that, your boyfriend? We always discussed what we were going to cook for dinner because neither of our wives cooked. I'll cook for you, lady, sweetie. Mine works the microwave pretty good, but oh, all right. Not too long ago, Cody and his family went on a vacation to Disney World, and I remember telling him and warned him that it's not the happiest place on earth. And they don't sell beer at the Magic Kingdom. Danielle, he bragged about your accomplishments, what a great nurse you are, plans for the future, and the Blush boot camp you had committed to. Not a day went by that he was not working toward being a better husband and pursuing your marriage. He loved you without question. Brody and Adley, you were your father's heart and light in his eyes. Watching the changes in him as you come into his life, and it was incredible. God, he loved those kids. He cannot wait to tell us where you were coming, about your first steps, or how advanced you were with potty training and your latest achievements and developments as he's grown up. Nothing brought a smile to his face like being your father. And every close friend of Cody has some sort of video of both of you. Tim and Loretta, your son was proud of his family, his small town raising in Odessa, and the examples you set in your marriage of working through anything and relying on each other. I cannot count on the times that he commented on his childhood and the standard you set for parenting. He was always grateful of both of you for being there to help out with Brody and Adley. He couldn't say that enough. Okay. Cody was a case study in the pursuit of excellence and integrity. Only the true bravery is shown in the face of impending death. There is no time to think of being brave. Either you are or you're not. That's when you find out if you're built for it. Cody was. His actions that day showed you exactly the person he was. A true warrior. Cody, I will miss you, and I love you like a little brother. Thank you.
I'm Mark Law from WAS, officer with the Independence Police Department. I'm from B-Watch. I was assigned to B-Watch with Cody. He was Sector 30 and I was 20 Sector. And this is what I wrote for Cody. I wrote after he was killed. And I wrote it, I'm going to try not to cry up here today. I wrote it in respect for Cody and to honor his memory. So I'll just get started. Cody came back to Independence after leaving to pursue a career in the private sector to provide for his family and, very frankly, for a safer work environment. But Cody came back to Independence Police because he was a cop to his core. Cody brought a special gift to work every day, We called these his morning ritual rants on things he had highlighted as important topics to discuss. Many of these discussions were rather colorful, to say the least. Many of us would pour gasoline on the fire to get Cody even more fired up. Cody was the type of person who had to make his point and voice be heard. He made his points as crystal clear to you. Sorry, I lost my place there for a minute. He made his points crystal clear to you with an emphasis on Cody being right, and the other emphasis was on we needed to all do better each day, no matter the topic of discussion. I enjoyed sitting behind Cody, making notes of his rants and plotting the memes we would make that day and catchphrases that would be used throughout the day to poke at Cody and create epic memes with Cody's intense looks in those memes. I can tell you it was a pleasure going on calls with Cody and seeing his face when Jason and I would pull up. Cody knew why we were there, and it was to pour jet fuel onto his sparkling personality. Cody was the victim of countless pranks and memes, but rest assured, Cody kept track of every prank and made a list for the following day where he would air his grievances to those who had violated the Cody Code of Conduct. Cody knew when my patrol car entered his sector down to the second. He knew how long I was in his vicinity, and he knew if you were eating at a restaurant in his sector. He kept track of your time in his area and documented it. He was very good at making sure you knew he took a report in your sector and that it was documented into the Cody grievance list. Recently, Cody was involved in a car chase involving a stolen auto. Jason and I responded to an intersection in the pursuit's path. Just as we arrived in the intersection, we observed the suspect drive through the intersection at a high rate of speed. Then the pursuing unit, but the secondary unit, Cody, was apparently on horseback or driving a 1975 Ford Pinto. We joined the pursuit and announced we were now secondary in the pursuit. At that moment, you could have heard a pin drop as Cody got on the radio and advised that he was secondary. We immediately corrected him, which prompted a message on our MDT that we had cut him off in the car chase. We both looked at each other and giggled and said, "He must be driving a turtle today." Eventually, the pursuit ended and the suspect was captured. We both knew Cody would add this to his grievance list. Later that evening in a group text, Cody conceded that he was wrong, that we didn't cut him off in the pursuit. We both knew immediately something was wrong because Cody never conceded an argument without a heated discussion regarding his points. One of many stories that I shared with Cody. Cody was a beloved member of B-Watch. We all knew Cody had our backs, and we knew he would always do his very best. Cody was passionate about his job as a police officer, and he demanded perfection from himself and others around him. Cody was the person you wanted showing up when you called 911 for help. Cody was exactly what a policeman should be. I think Cody knew we all respected and loved him for his unique opinions and passion for being a police officer. Cody did everything as a police officer the way you're supposed to do them. Without question, he represented the profession to the highest standards. I can assure you, Cody gave 100% on that call for help. He responded to on Thursday. We all would have done what Cody did to save a life and render aid to a hurt human being. Cody made the ultimate sacrifice, and this world is a better place because Cody answered that call for help. When I arrived on scene last Thursday, I knew Cody was hurt, and I knew he expected all of us to be our very best, to save lives and protect people. I hope he knows we all did our best for him. I hope the community knows that Cody never quit fighting the good fight. He was a true warrior and a true example to all of us on how we should carry ourselves as police officers and human beings. Cody loved his kids and his family. Cody set the bar for what a hero looks like. He lived it every day, and he walked the walk. I'm sure he's upstairs right now debating wing size and where he's going to be patrolling in heaven. I'm also sure he arrived with a list of grievances for God as well. I'll have a Busch Light beer for you, Cody, because that was your favorite. I'll never forget your smile and your childish giggling every time we talked and played jokes on each other. I'll let you take secondary from now on in any of my pursuits in the future. Just watch over us as we carry on and honor your memory. I'll finish up with what I wrote this morning for Cody. I heard Cody's father say that Cody wanted to be Batman when he was a little boy. Then he wanted to be a police officer. I'd say he accomplished both his dreams. I'll read you some quotes from The Dark Knight. I just can't take it. I mean, nobody will ever know who it was who saved an entire city. They know who it was. It was the Batman. It was Cody. A hero can be anyone, even a man doing something as simple, as reassuring as putting a coat around a young boy's shoulders to let him know that the world hadn't ended. Cody lived his life as a hero. Danielle, your husband's a hero. Thank you for loaning us to spend time with your husband.
Good afternoon. I'm Chris Cole. I'm by far the last person that should probably be up here speaking, so just bear with me here. First, I want to thank the Allen family for giving me the honor to speak about a man that many, if not all in this room, knew and loved so dearly. I've been struggling to find the words to say to you today. Seems no matter what I write, the words I come up with just don't seem to give Cody the respect and the justice that he deserves. Cody was the real deal. He was genuine, compassionate, funny, someone that never gave up, and as everybody else said, always had a smile on his face. He was always the first to put himself in danger to protect the innocent from the wicked. He faced the devil every day at work, looked him in the eyes, and said, "Not on my watch." Cody was not only a fellow officer and friend, but he was considered family by so many others. During our police academy class, we were partners nearly the whole time. And one of the things I remember the most was going on our lunch breaks. We would go to my mom and dad's house. When he'd walk in the house, help himself to the cabinets, make himself a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Take a big bite, and all he would say is, "This academy is making me fat." And if anybody knew Cody, he was far from that. That guy was as fit as could be and never failed to remind me of it. I feel honored to have known and served with him, and grateful that I have so many good memories that include him. Cody died doing what heroes do. He selflessly put his own life at risk to save another. Being a police officer is a calling, and one that Cody fulfilled every day. He wanted to make a change, and that's exactly what he did. He touched so many lives, not only in this room, but out in the community as well. And while we have shed a lot of tears this week, feel broken, hurt, sad,
and even mad. We have to believe that God called his warrior home for a reason. The Webster Dictionary defines a hero as a man of distinguished courage or ability, admired for his brave deeds and noble qualities. That is not only the Webster's definition of a hero, but a true definition of Cody and his character. I don't know how you end a speech about a hero, so I'll just finish by saying this. I will see you later, brother. We have the watch from here. Rest easy and enjoy all the peace God has given you. Thank you.